Shalom, shalom, kingdom salute. What's good? Where are the prophets at? Where are the prophetic people? This is Apostle T, Kingdom Media Foundation. Yeah, I've been on here 3 times today, and the Lord is stirring up some things. So as he gives it to me, I'm just going to just pass it along and share what he's saying to his people. In this day and time, I believe that more important than ever, prophets need to link up with wisdom. Young prophets need to link up with wisdom. Get some apostles in your life. There's a reason why the Lord married those 2 offices or those 2 giftings together, that they would be foundational gifts for the edification and for the building up of the church. There was a reason behind that. One of the reasons, and I'm in the dark right now. Let me see something. One of the reasons why it's very important is because prophets are power agents. And so they're always seeking for power. And the younger you are in the prophetic realm, the more that you may not realize how you function, and may not realize the pros and cons of that. But prophets are power agents. They get attracted to, I got to walk inside. They get attracted to, they're drawn to power. Prophets move in power, and they can discern and sniff out power, the powerful and the powerless. They can see that very quickly. And that's one of the things that they move in. One of the reasons behind that is because the history of their function and their authority is to contest with other atmospheric warriors. So whether they be prophets of Baal, prophets of all of the false gods, or the gods of Kemet, or some of the ancient Assyrian gods, Babylonian gods, the prophets were always at war spiritually. They were contesting, they were in competition, manifesting Yahweh's spirit, contrasted against the spirits of darkness. So prophets are born for war. Now they're born to bring consolation as well, but they have an interesting relationship with power. But one of the things that we have to understand, because if you're not careful, a prophet will draw only to those that they see manifesting power, and not link up with the people that they need. Now, apostles are very powerful in the spirit, but a lot of times, depending on what kind of apostles you end up dealing with, you may be dealing with an apostle who has learned how to cloak him or herself in meekness. The more they mature in grace and love, they see that because a lot of apostles came up like prophets, or came up under the school of the prophets, or were immersed in prophetic ministry before they recognized who they were as apostles. They came up in those ranks, or a lot of times as teachers. But one of the things you got to realize is that the more that apostles grow in revelation, I'm not dealing with just having titles. I'm really dealing with functions and relationships right now. But the more that apostles learn Christ and are sitting at the feet of Christ and are being instructed and being brought into these deliberations with Christ, they become the embodiments of love. They begin to walk in a tremendous understanding of love, revelation, and grace. And so you got to understand this, that a prophet at times may not respect the wisdom. And that's the other thing too. Apostles are strategists. They're stratospheric warriors, and they function in high levels of the realm of wisdom. So a lot of times a prophet inadvertently or subconsciously will disrespect or not fully honor the grace that's on an apostle, because apostles are not always trying to show off their power. One of the reasons why that is because their greatest power is to bring out power in other people. One of the greatest manifestations of apostolic ministry, it is to extract or to pull out powers within people. Grace, and peace, Queen. So a lot of times apostles will hold back on that which is resident in them unless it is to draw out that which is resident in others. So they've learned to cloak themselves in humility. Now, I'm not saying that they're weak, because apostles operate in tremendous boldness and tremendous confidence in what the Lord showed them or revealed to them. But they have also learned how to cloak themselves in meekness so as to get into places where they could not get if they fully demonstrated the full power that they walked in. This is why the Apostle Paul said, I learned how to become all things to all men. This is how he learned how to maneuver. It's how he learned how to deal with the Gentiles and at the same time deal with the kings and deal with the people in the courts, and at the same time deal with the Pharisees. He learned how to be content where he was. He learned how to live as a poor man. He learned how to live as a rich man. He learned how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a tent maker. He also learned how to receive gifts and receive love offerings. He learned how to be in freedom, and he also learned how to be content in prison. So he learned how to adapt to his environment. When you understand that nature, that ambassadorial aspect of the apostle, there's a certain wisdom and grace that comes along with that enables them to temper the power of the prophetic. Now, the prophetic, untamed, untempered, unmanaged, can be just brute strength, burning down, tearing down everything. But now, and you may not see this too much if a prophet has been raised up by an apostle, but I'm just talking about raw prophetic power a lot of times needs to be tamed by apostolic wisdom. But here's the problem. Many prophets do not like to be tempered by the wisdom of the apostle because they're looking for power. They're looking for a demonstration of power instead of the power that comes by virtue of wisdom and grace and revelation and temperance and meekness, right? So the apostle does not want to hinder the prophet, but the apostle wants to empower and grace the prophet with all the tools needed so that their work would be successful. But a lot of times novice prophets can be some of the most rebellious, hard-headed people, stubborn people that you will ever meet. Right? So unless you harshly rebuke them, put them in their place, they won't respect you. That's just like you dealing with, it's like you're dealing with wild animals, right? You're dealing with a wild beast. And the only way that you can get that beast to respect you is to let that beast know that you got some fire for them, right? Then they'll back down because of the power you demonstrate, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, because apostles need to also be able to demonstrate that they are of the same clan, and they know how to demonstrate as well. But you would get the most out of the experience, prophets. You would get the most out of the experience if you dig for wisdom, and if you seek to allow the apostolic wisdom to bring more form, more structure, more development, more clarification to your office, to your authority, to your assignment. In other words, the apostle will enhance you if you allow them to. In other words, don't kick up against the pricks. Don't battle up against apostolic wisdom. Now, in this post, let me just say this. Just for the people who know who I am, I'm not saying this to boost me right now. It's many apostles in the land. I'm really not talking about me per se. I'm just talking about relationships, spiritual relationships, because that's what I do. I teach on kings and priests, government and order, but also spirituality, being inside the local body, but also being sent as an emissary to the world. So you can relate this to the people in your life and the people who function in the way they're functioning. I'm not really focusing on me right now. I'm really just focusing on trying to warn, help, love on the prophets, and tell you one of the best things that you could ever do is link yourself up with a real apostle who not only flows in power and who is not so insecure that they feel like they always have to flex power, but an apostle who has been drenched in the maturity that comes and manifests through wisdom and love. Wisdom and love, grace, wisdom, love, peace. They'll show you how to take what the visions that the Lord is showing you, the dreams he's showing you, the things that he's telling you to say, and how to make those things the most successful, how to make them the most prosperous. See, the apostle wants you to succeed. You know, some of the prophets, if you're only around prophets, then depending on how hard your message is, you might develop the terminology and the language that says, you know, I got a hard word, I'm meant to be rejected. But see, the apostle will show you that your word does, even if it's a hard word, does not have to be rejected. It can be received, but you need to use apostolic grace to push out that prophetic word. You need apostolic vision and grace to help publish that prophetic word. And we know that all people who prophesy are not prophets, but I'm really dealing with the governmental prophet, those who are assigned to be a prophet, but they're novices, so they don't know how to temper, they don't know how to move in apostolic grace, which is very important. And let me give you an example. Jonah. Jonah was a powerful prophet. He knew that he was effective in ministry. He knew that if he spoke and he preached repentance, the nations would turn. He understood that already. As a matter of fact, that was his problem. His problem was that he understood and he recognized that these people would turn as a result of his ministry. But he had a foul and nasty attitude. Now, of course, this is Old Covenant. This is prior to the revelation of who the apostles were, and also the official releasing of apostles under the New Covenant. So if Jonah would have had an apostle in his life, he would have helped him connect to and disconnect from some of the things that were going on in his flesh and the attitudes that the Hebrews had toward the other nations. And he would have helped him understand that it's time to shift from that mentality and receive and embrace the fact that we are called to the nations. And we are called not to just be distinct and separate, but we're called to be separate, but also we're called to go in and claim those territories, claim those realms. So receive the people, right? Don't just repel the people, receive them and bring them cultivate them into righteousness by loving on them. It doesn't change what you see. You'll still discern, you'll still distinguish, you'll still see devils, you'll still see angels, you'll still see the revelations, you'll still have dreams, you'll still be able to recognize idolatry and sin, and you're going to teach them, but you're not going to just uproot and destroy, because see that even the fullness of the prophet is revealed in not just tearing down, uprooting and destroying, but it's also building and planting. So that's why it's good for the prophets to connect with the apostles, because they can help perfect the building and planting aspect of their ministry. And that's something that I've seen so many times over and over and over again. And then if you do have people who prophets who connect with apostles, they're connecting with those who call themselves apostles but still act like prophets. Right? And who are more concerned with the publishing of the word, and who are more concerned with the releasing of the message of the heard word, the being oracles, more concerned with that than they are concerned with the other aspect, with the revelation, the mystery of Christ, not only in the prophet, but Christ in the people that they're called and sent to. And so there's a formation, that Christ be formed. This is the mystery, Christ in you, the hope of glory. And see, the apostles understand that the glory is within people, and that hope and that expectation needs to be cultivated inside of them. It needs to be developed in them, and that's done through wisdom. That's done through strategy. That's done through love. It's done through compassion. It's done through connecting revelation with practical things. It's done by giving people projects and helping them move along the way and learn along as they go. Come alongside with me. Don't be distant from me because you're not right, but come alongside with me and I'll show you along the way. I'm going to teach you the more excellent way as you walk with me. Go on a voyage with me. Go on a mission with me. Connect and align yourself with me. And I'm going to show you how to be as we do. I'm not going to just tell you or declare and decree. I'm going to take you on my wing alongside. You're going to work with me. This is why Paul said, my fellow laborers, my fellow workers. So this is an apostolic mindset is about moving, working together, partnerships, collaborations, building, and they're cultivating you into the culture of the kingdom, which is the way, the revelation of how to walk in peace, in righteousness, in hope as we do. Now, but the prophet has to learn how to submit when the apostle is not begging for submission. Because the apostle is secure in their revelation of who they are, they're not going to always be grandstanding saying, I am the apostle, you need to listen. They're not going to do that. They're just going to model out certain things that they would expect for you to catch the wave as a prophet, catch the trend, catch the pattern, and come alongside. If you see what you say you see, if you can see all that, then you can see that I'm setting out a path for you. I'm setting out a way for you, a pattern for you to walk in. So this is what many apostles do. They set patterns. They walk through the patterns. They become patterns, walk through the patterns, set them up so you can see them model out the pattern so as to make your way prosperous. But I'm pleading with the prophets, the young prophets. Yes, you heard the word, but submit that thing under some apostolic wisdom. See, an apostle will help you understand how to present yourself as an ambassador of not only Christ, but also his kingdom in the church. So that means prophets can't just be blasting on what's wrong with the church all the time. Why? Because they are official agents of that agency. So if they're called in to deal with sin or to uproot some things in a local house, a local facility, a local congregation, that's one thing. But you don't go out on CNN to blast your home country, to blast your nation. You don't go out on Fox to blast your own people. You see what I'm saying? So some people, they're so excited that they have a word from the Lord. They're so excited that the Lord showed them something. And now we have tools to communicate directly to the globe just from our house or from wherever we are. And so we feel like everything that God is saying, I need to release it. Right? But that's why we need to submit these things to the Lord and also be in covenant with people who have wisdom and grace to help us know how to represent what he's saying correctly. Because just because you're hearing what he said and you're seeing what he's saying and you're understanding and feeling the impression of what he's saying, that doesn't mean that word is for the whole globe or for all believers or even for the world to digest. Right? So we have to have wisdom to know the times and the seasons, to know the dispensations we're in, to know the priorities of the Lord, because the Lord, he is not a robot. He is spirit. And so what that means is he has personality, he has will, he has objectives, and he has priorities. Everything is not his priority all the time. Just because it's what's in our heart, it doesn't mean it is the major priority that he has for his church globally at the time. That's why we need to be able, this is why I believe we should teach on the gifts, on the seals. We should teach it not just to let people know, honor them and don't honor them, or, respect them because, they're called apostles or prophets. That to me is meaningless. The reason why we need it taught so we can understand these are revelations or glimpses. These are ways that we see the character and the function of Christ, the Messiah, the high priest, the king in operation. And so when we see his manifestation flowing in particular people who manifest him as gifts to the body and gifts to the world, then we know how to relate to him through our relationship with them. So that's why it's very important. It's very important to understand that, and apostles need prophets. They need prophets to enforce and push through that vision at times, to be like the bulldozers to prepare the way they need that brute strength. They need that project manager in them, that prophet who will take on responsibility, that sheepdog who will take on the work and take on the field and guard against predators and wild dogs and beasts. Apostles need prophets, but prophets, this is the problem. Prophets don't all the time recognize that they need apostles, not just to say, I can call you up, but to pull on the wisdom and revelation that's in them, the same way they know that people need to pull and honor what's in them as prophets. And this is the hard part, because prophets deal with pride, especially young prophets. It could be, when I say young too, this whole time when I've been saying young, I'm not dealing with natural age. I'm talking about novice prophets, the young coming into it. I posted something the other day, it's been a few months ago now, and the guy came on there and called himself rebuking me. And because I was talking about young prophets, and he was like, you're wrong, God, people's youth does not is not an indication of their wisdom. And I'm like, no, I'm not talking about natural ages in the spirit. When I say young prophets, I'm talking about novice prophets. I'm talking about those young in the ministry coming into. So you could be 50, 60 years old and just now coming into what it means to be a prophet. But this is just some of the tendencies of people coming into something new. Remember the sons of thunder. So even though they were young apostles, they, came up under John the Baptist's teaching. So they had come up under the jurisdiction of John the Baptist. So even though they were in training to be apostles, right? So the Lord says, look, you ain't calling nothing down from the sky. You're not destroying nobody. You don't know what spirit you in right now. Right. So that's one of the other things apostles will help prophets do, because prophets, because of their role, they can traffic and be in different spirits. They may not always be in the spirit of the Lord, but they're atmospheric. They're open. They can be like, say, if there's much grief in the environment, if a prophet is not yielded and don't understand who they are and what the technology is like, or how the technology in them functions, that they can then become a mouthpiece for the spirit of grief because they're in the midst of grief. Or a prophet can be in the midst of high energy, high joy, high expectation, and they can walk directly in that environment. And in that environment, they can get so caught up in the environment, they become the mouthpiece, the oracle of the dominant spirit that's there. Right? So it doesn't always mean it's the spirit they need to manifest or talk from or speak into or speak out of. But so because of that, because prophets are always, or have the tendency, I'm talking about prophets who have not been trained, have the tendency to only respect if you demonstrate charisma. So if you demonstrate the charismatic realm, if you're operating in that, if the words of knowledge is flowing, if you're flowing in that, then okay, yeah, I can hear you now because I know that you manifesting something. But sometimes we have to shut down the manifestation so that we can first get wisdom. Because wisdom is what chisels out our form. It's what builds our character. It's what builds our insides, so we can know not only what to do, but when to do it. So for apostles, it's about being a wise master builder. It's about building by revelation. It's about not only having the power to build, but having the vision and revelation of what to build in the right season. So I can go on and on about that, but I just want to say to you, I want to encourage prophets, wherever you are, begin to start looking at your apostles differently than you might look at them or may have looked at them. begin to start looking at the resident wisdom that he's placed in them. And that wisdom is not for them. The wisdom that he placed in them is for you. It's to make you, it's to set you up so that you can function. When Christ came, the Father had him submit himself to be baptized by John to fulfill the word, so that John can then in turn release the kingdom message to him under his jurisdiction. And John was able to acknowledge in that moment, the one who's coming after me is greater than me. So this is not something that Christ told John. This is something that he had to get a revelation on, and he needed to be the one to declare it. So as prophets, you have to be able to declare that the one who he has yoked you with in the spirit, that person, and when I say greater, don't get this the wrong way, that person has an authority in them that makes it so that it would behoove you to submit to it for your own benefit. Right? And because they walk in love and humility, they're not going to use their authority to abuse, or they're not going to use their authority to demean you or to put you under them. The apostle is going to use their authority to help establish you. And then so Christ comes back around and he says, he gives him an honor. He says, has never been any prophet greater than John. Now, we don't see John doing any miracles, any signs, any wonders outside of the fact that he could discern who he was. But now Christ returns the favor. Christ now gives him honor. And Christ says, you're the greatest prophet ever. And this is one of the other things that apostles will do. They will affirm the prophetic in you, and they will affirm your place so that you won't be a wandering spirit, so that you won't be seeking for approval or seeking for somebody to validate you all the time. Because when you're connected to the apostle that he's assigned you to, then your identity is intact as long as you're connected. Your placement, the order that you belong to, is intact because of that. So I'm about to get out of here. Listen, if you know any prophets that need to hear this, give it to them. Now, if they're in the flesh, they're not going to like it. But if they are in the spirit, they're going to receive that word. And I want the prophet's eyes to open up, see who your apostles are, and then extract revelation. The same way you can keep flowing out of the spirit and flowing and prophesying. And as long as you're in the spirit, it flows. It's like springing up. The same way wisdom and revelation and insight flows out of the apostle, as long as you keep asking the questions, as long as you keep seeking, as long as you keep trying to. So you're not going to exhaust them. No matter how powerful you are, you're not going to exhaust them. You're not going to exhaust them. But you don't overly impress them either. See, the apostles are not overly impressed by powerful beings. They're not overly impressed by that because they've seen powerful people come and go. So your power, your demonstration of power is not what really excites them. You know, the prayer is that the eyes of your heart, your understanding will be enlightened, that you will be conformed into the image of Christ. And so they're looking for that formation. They're looking for that Christ formation in you. All right. Grace and peace. I'll talk to y'all soon. Shalom, shalom.